The appeal of fictional anime characters, regardless of their depicted age, is rooted in their designed aesthetics, not in any real-world context. Fiction allows for the creation of characters with exaggerated, idealized, and stylized traits that do not exist in reality, making their appeal a separate concept from attraction to real humans. The controversy surrounding this topic largely stems from conflating fiction with reality, which is a failure in logical reasoning rather than a valid argument. In anime and other illustrated media, character designs are often not bound by real-world biological accuracy. The visual style prioritizes appeal, personality, and thematic elements over realistic proportions or development. For example, an anime character might be labeled as a certain age in a story, but their physical and behavioral traits are often dictated by the art style and narrative rather than resembling real-life individuals of that age group. Many anime characters exhibit features that are neither proportionally nor behaviorally reflective of real humans, making direct comparison illogical. Attraction to fictional characters is distinct from attraction to real people because reality cannot replicate the exact characteristics that make these characters appealing in the first place. Their existence is purely in the realm of fiction, detached from real-world consequences, ethics, or societal norms applied to human interactions. Those who argue otherwise rely on an emotional reaction rather than a reasoned analysis of how fiction operates. The controversy surrounding this subject is largely driven by ignorance and emotional conditioning rather than logic. Conflating fiction with reality disregards the fundamental nature of artistic expression and imposes real-world moral frameworks onto non-existent entities. Fiction has always explored a range of themes, aesthetics, and ideas that do not translate into real-world actions or beliefs. Dismissing this distinction is a failure to engage with the medium critically and objectively. Ignorance is not an argument. The discomfort some individuals feel about certain fictional portrayals does not equate to a rational basis for condemnation. Art, literature, and media have long included themes that provoke discussion, and emotional responses do not dictate objective reality. If someone refuses to separate fiction from reality, that is a failure in their reasoning, not an inherent flaw in the fiction itself. People engage with all kinds of content that would be considered morally unacceptable in reality. Fictional depictions of murder, crime, warfare, and terrorism are widely explored in video games, literature, and film without restraint. The presence of such themes does not inherently dictate the moral stance of the consumer, nor does it mean they desire to replicate those actions in real life. The same applies to pleasure-driven fantasies. People indulge in a wide range of taboos in fiction without it reflecting their real-world actions or ethics. Many individuals fantasize about things that, if committed in reality, would be reprehensible: rape, extreme violence, and countless other acts. Yet, these same people are attracted to real humans and merely amplify specific traits they find desirable in fiction. For example, exaggerated physical features, large breasts, an idealized figure, a striking face, are common aesthetic elements that enhance appeal in artwork. However, the satisfaction gained from consuming such depictions does not translate to expectations or desires in the real world. This is evident across various forms of media. Video games glorifying crime, murder, and chaos do not create real criminals. They serve as an escape into a world that operates by different rules. The logic remains consistent across all forms of fiction. The notion that being drawn to fictional anime characters, regardless of their depicted age, equates to an attraction to real children is nothing more than a shallow, reactionary argument. Those pushing this narrative contribute nothing of substance to society. They are passive consumers of ideological agendas, swallowing whatever is fed to them without applying independent thought. These individuals are not equipped to meaningfully criticize fiction, nor do they actively work to protect real children suffering from genuine harm in the real world. Their moral outrage is selective and performative, rooted in emotional reflex rather than a logical, professional approach to safeguarding actual lives. If such individuals were confronted with the reality of real child exploitation, something happening daily in multiple corners of the world, they would realize the hollowness of their manufactured concerns over fictional media. The same psychological phenomenon applies to violence. Someone may be repulsed by real-world murder yet feel exhilaration when engaging in virtual violence in a game. Why? Because morality and ethics are human constructs designed for societal stability and survival. They exist as frameworks that govern reality, not imagination. Human minds are dark, limitless in their ability to create and indulge in whatever their imagination allows. People can despise real-world crime while taking immense pleasure in its fictional representation. That is because fiction operates on a different plane, one where raw, unrestricted desires take form in a controlled world, free from real-world consequences. In reality, consequences are dictated by human systems, enforced by human hands. But in fiction, Consequences exist solely for narrative and entertainment purposes, nothing more. Human societies, whether communities, countries, or any form of collective, are governed through elections. Regardless of the intent, ideologies, or morals of the leader, the path a country takes is ultimately decided by the majority vote. This concept, however, extends beyond the political realm and applies at the individual level, especially when engaging with fiction. At the core, humans are not inherently aligned with the values, ideologies, or beliefs of their communities, religions, or countries. Rather, they are indoctrinated and conditioned by the culture, systems, and frameworks that each society and nation creates. This conditioning shapes how they view the world and their place in it, but it does not define their core desires or imagination. When it comes to fiction, however, these external constructs, the moral systems, societal expectations, and cultural constraints, become irrelevant. Fiction is a realm where the individual has absolute control. It is a space where the rules of the world are made and shaped by the creator or consumer of the story, free from the confines of societal norms. In this domain, what matters is not the consensus of a group, nor the dictates of established systems, but the vision and desires of the individual. In the fictional world, you, the individual, are the ruler. You create the outcomes, shape the characters, and set the moral and ethical boundaries within that space. The indulgence in these fantasies, the unleashing of desires in these imagined realms, has no effect on real-world societies or the global order. These fictional universes exist as isolated worlds, disconnected from the rigid constructs of reality. The only rule that applies is that of the individual, where actions, consequences, and desires exist within the boundaries you set. Just as a country's path is determined by the majority vote of its people, the course of a fictional world is determined by the individual creator and participant. Morality, ethics, and societal constraints are constructs of the real world, and in fiction, they hold no sway. Fiction is a space of liberation where the majority is the individual and the individual alone. Anyone who refuses to acknowledge or accept this basic truth of human nature, this fundamental reality about individuals and society, can only be seen as a dictator, a tyrant. Every human has the potential to embody this role. The collective, in a sense, serves as the fertile ground, the very seeds from which a leader is born, be they a tyrant or not. This same dynamic plays out in online spaces, where the collective consciousness nurtures the rise of a tyrannical figure. The people, each one with their own individual ego and essence, come together, unknowingly feeding into the creation of this figure. Their egos align, amplify, and complement each other, driving them toward a singular, unified goal. In this way, the seeds of tyranny are cultivated not just by one, but by many, as they collectively empower and elevate a singular force. It is through this union of egos, often blindly and without awareness, that a tyrant, online or otherwise, comes into power. The individual has the potential for leadership, but it is the collective force, the unity of their desires, that brings it to life. And once this tyrant emerges, it is the people who helped cultivate it who must face the consequences of what they've nurtured.
Okay, let's talk about the PROTECT Act of 2003. Prosecutorial remedies and other tools to end the exploitation of children today, submitted by Senator Orrin Hatch and Congressman Mike Pence. So the PROTECT Act includes prohibitions against obscene illustrations depicting child sexually explicit material. So I understand where you could get confused. But the law was created with the intent of stopping people from creating virtual children based off real life children, and then using that to create child sexually explicit material. It has only ever been successfully used in trial one time, that was later overturned. In April of 2006, the United States versus Williams ruled that the pandering provision in the PROTECT Act went against the First Amendment. And then in June of 2008, the United States versus Hanley case ended with a ruling that the PROTECT Act was unconstitutionally vague. Neil Gaiman even remarked that when applied to his own work, The Dollhouse, you could be arrested for owning it, according to this law. So no, you cannot go to jail for loli art. It does not violate federal law in the United States. You don't have to like it, but it is not illegal.